Donald Trump is exactly like Hitler. And if you don't get that, I'm not being serious, then I don't know what to tell you. However, Donald Trump does, in fact, speaking seriously now, have a lot in common with Hitler. However, you are correct, or very likely to be correct, when you call out people who compare Trump to Hitler, because it's possible that when they compare Trump to Hitler, they're actually being hyperbolic. However, when I compare Trump to Hitler, I'm not. I'm actually looking at Hitler as a person and who he was, and I can 100% prove my case with actual facts and evidence. I guarantee you, I'm going to make my case. I'm going to make a good case, proving my point. And if I don't, at the end of this video, feel free to put a dislike and write in a comment. Please don't just dislike and don't say anything. Put a dislike and put in the comments how I'm wrong. But I'm thinking you're not going to be saying that unless you're just being a troll, of course. But if you actually have a legitimate criticism, please do write it and I will respond. So before I explain how Hitler and Trump relate, I'm going to explain why it is that many people struggle to understand this concept. This is the Debate Me channel. If you're new to the channel, click on the like button and subscribe, and welcome aboard. Let's get started. So the reason why a lot of people struggle, well, it's either people are on board with the idea that Hitler and Trump are very similar in some ways. Either they're on board with that. Typically, that's somebody who is more feelings-based than facts-based, and they have a deep hatred for Donald Trump. These are the ones who, you might want to call Trump derangement syndrome folks. I know some folks on the left don't like that term, but I think there is some validity to that term because there are people on the left who have a certain level of obsession and hatred for Donald Trump. Now, there's a lot of things to hate him for, but he's a stranger. If you don't know him, I mean, having these really, really extreme feelings about someone you don't know, typically, if you tell someone that it's ridiculous to compare Trump to Hitler, odds are that you probably are correct. However, there are people who would make this statement who actually are saying something that's based in facts and reality. I would be one of those people. I don't have any hate for Donald Trump, so I just call it like it is and tell it like it is. And based on Donald Trump and his actual actions, his personality, I mean, I've been looking at the things that he says, the things that he does, and done a lot of research about him. And based on everything that I've seen, I can factually make a comparison to him and Hitler. But before we get into that, let me talk about why it is that even making that separation between me saying it versus someone who's just really being emotional, the reason why it still would be difficult for me to make that point is because critical thinking is something that is in short supply in this country. And just like how that person who hates Trump, who will say the Hitler thing makes sense because, again, they're not really thinking straight, you have people who have a similar high level of emotion towards Hitler that trying to compare Trump to him is just kind of like, whoa. And it's like a one-track minded thing, and you can't pull them down from that ledge. So the ledge that I'm talking about is when people think about Hitler, typically they're thinking about the Holocaust, right? They're thinking about genocide. They're thinking about, all those people that died, the brutality of it. And that's all they can think about. Like, Hitler did some really, really bad things. So, I mean, bad to say the least, right? A lot of people, and this is the heart of the problem, a lot of people struggle to recognize that there was more to him than just that one thing. And just to give you an example, just to get the point home, make it very, very simple. So at one point in time, Hitler was just a baby, right? As a baby, he didn't kill anyone. He didn't do anything. He's a child, right? And then later on, he was just a 10-year-old, just a 13-year-old, just a 16-year-old. And that's when his mother died. And then he's a young adult, 22, 25. I think that's about when he got into the military. But the point is, for example, you can't, and again, some people are so emotional that even as a baby, they think of him as evil, right? Because all they can see, again, one-track minded, all they see is the end outcome of what he eventually did. Anytime you say the word Hitler or anyone's thinking about Hitler, it's just one thing. It's Holocaust. That's it. Nothing else, right? So even me explaining something as very basic as when he was a baby, he hadn't done anything yet, right? You can say it was just a matter of time and there's something evil inside of him and it hadn't matured yet. Okay, fine. But at that point in time, he was just a kid, right? The two things can be true. We can recognize the evil man that he was. We can recognize the evil and atrocities that he committed. And we can also recognize that as a baby, he was just a baby. He wasn't that person yet, right? He eventually became that person later on in life. So that, I think, is the disconnect. So let's say, for example, he could have been the best, most friendly, most loving kid at 15. I don't think he was. But I'm just saying, like, this is, again, that same level of like the Trump derangement syndrome. You can only see him as the devil and evil. So even if he does something great, you still don't see it. Same thing with Hitler. You could do all the research you want and find out he was the most wonderful kid at 15. He used to work for free at homeless shelters and donate. He worked he worked at a job like selling newspapers and took all of his money and donated it to the poor, whatever it is, right? Just the nicest kid, man. He could be a choir boy. He was a Boy Scout and never did anything wrong. I'm just hypothetically, right? And people would still be unable to recognize who he was at that time. That is the power of our emotions. When emotions get involved in our thought process, we block the critical thinking centers of our brains. And I think a lot of people struggle with that even me explaining like, oh, but at 10 years old, he hadn't done anything. Yeah, but that guy's just evil. Like that I think is a big challenge. So with that being said, so that's the explanation for why people don't understand how you can compare Hitler to Trump. So with that being said, the way that you can compare Hitler to Trump is by recognizing who he was. First of all, eliminate all the time of his life when he was killing people and all that craziness when he was in the government. Let's go pre-government, right? What kind of person was he? All right, so here are 13 similarities between Donald Trump and Adolf Hitler. Hilton. Anyway, Germany in 1920 had many similarities to the United States in 2020. Both times are extraordinary. Voters are polarized between the left and the right, and centrist leaders struggled to stay in office. That is the United States right now. Germany in 1920 was far more polarized than the United States in 2020. So they were more polarized, but still similarities there. Several German provinces had Soviet revolutions. A right-wing private army, the Freikorps, killed thousands of Reds. Street brawling between the left and the right occurred nightly in cities across Germany. The recent unrest in Portland and Kenosha has been far less violent than the world Hitler lived in. So, we could say that continuing on the trajectory that we've been on so far, we are headed in that direction. We're not there yet, but look at what's happening, Kenosha, Portland, and move that into the future if it doesn't stop and it continues to escalate. Look at the insurrection. Look at all these militias that are growing in size. Eventually, and look at the lawlessness happening in Portland, and it's not even reported on the news. Like, where could that take us? Could we see potentially a lot more violence in the future? Absolutely. Now, this was a much younger democracy, so we have a lot more things in place to protect us from going in that direction, but that is where we appear to be headed. Anyway, that being said, Number two, both times were and are extraordinary for the same reason. Conservatives were discredited and lost control of the right, enabling the rise of a right-wing populace. The Republican Party, right? What happened to them? They're now the Trump Party, right? This is exactly what we just described here. Right-wing populist. Trump getting out there and winning based on saying the stuff that he knows the average person is saying. Not that he believes in any of that stuff, but he just knows, say the populist thing, right? Like I know, like a common thing he says, and this is a common thing I hear regular people saying. We don't have a lot of respect for a lot of people in government, right? The so-called experts and these guys. Look at these companies. Like, man, if I were the head of Apple, I would be doing things much better than the way they're doing. Look at how the phones cost so much. If they actually lowered the prices, right? That's a thing the layman will say, right? A lot of people have this idea that people in power, people in corporations and government, they're just a bunch of idiots. They don't know what they're doing. You could do a far better job. Sometimes that's actually true. But that's kind of the thing where the common man, and he says that same type of stuff. These guys, government, they're stupid. Dummies, right? That's the kind of stuff he puts out there, basically repeating the same stuff that people who are frustrated that they're saying. Right? That's the populist deal. In 1914, Prussian conservatives, led by Kaiser Wilhelm II, started World War I. So we're not in a world war, thankfully. In 1918, Germany lost World War I. About 2 million German soldiers were killed and 4 million wounded. The German economy was destroyed and millions of Germans were unemployed. Unemployment, right? We have high unemployment right now. Hungry and cold. A lot of people are homeless on the street right now, losing their homes. The conservatives, who were generally well educated, wow, no comment there, affluent, well, yeah, I could say that, and had been in positions of influence for generations, were discredited. Their place was taken on the right side by populists who were not educated or affluent. I guess actually that could be true. The old Republican Party, maybe that's what they're describing here. There's a similarity there. Now, the current Republican Party, a little bit of a different demographic based on who Trump targeted, right? The 2007-2008 Great Recession was followed by a realization that the wealthy 1% who are associated with conservative politics had both caused the recession and benefited from it. Since 2008, the economic disparity has increased in the United States. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. This discrediting of conservatives led to the 2016 conservative loss of control of the Republican Party, with conservative leaders being replaced by populists. While the pattern is similar, there is a difference in degree. World War I was far more destructive than the Great Recession. Number 3. The German right-wing populists, including Adolf Hitler, were dedicated to restoring Germany to its pre-World War I status as one of the leading nations of Europe. Make America great again. Right? Economically and culturally, current American right-wing populists, including Donald Trump, promised to make America great again. There you go. That's exactly what they were talking about back then. That was their thing that they were using to sort of get people going, In 1920s, German conservatives supported the right-wing populists on the belief that conservatives could control business and industrial policies, while the populists focused on popular conspiracy theories such as international cabals of Jewish bankers and Freemasons, secret Catholic societies, and Russian control of German communists. Since the 2016 election, conservatives have made a similar deal with the right-wing populists, who enthrall voters with wild theories about Mexican immigrants, Muslim terrorists, democratic pizzerias, all like QAnon, right? Same thing, 1920s. Again, another similarity. So this is all factual, right? We know that Donald Trump, one of his big things was this populist movement. That was his approach. We look at the people who have been sort of his allies, and they're all pushing that same type of thing. Make America great again. The conspiracy theories, right? So when we make a comparison to Hitler, it's based on facts, not based on feelings. Democracy was a new concept in Germany in the 1920s, so democracy was new. The Nazis believed, this is Debate Me channel, debate me in the comment section below, click on the like button,